Alright, today we're going to do an experiment. I've been reloading for a while now, and I've even taught NRA basic pistol classes, and we talked about squib loads and things like that. A squib load is when you don't have enough powder and you pull the trigger and it fires, but it just doesn't have the bang, the recoil, the force that you expect it to. And this can be very dangerous because you can lodge a bullet in the barrel, and then if you try to shoot another round down the chamber, you can have serious consequences, like basically literally blowing up your gun and causing lots of damage, not only to the gun but to yourself as well. So I was curious and wanted to know, well, how much powder does it take to produce a squib load? Meaning, actually more around getting a bullet stuck in your barrel. So first of all, I wanted to see, well, what happens if you actually load a round and actually have no powder in it at all. This is just a primer only. I loaded this round. This is 125 grain Federal HST hollow point. Okay, there's absolutely no powder in that, just a primer. Here's a 125 grain cast bullet, between 125 and 130 grain cast bullet with no grains of powder in it, just a primer. Then I went up by increments of 0.5. Now actually it was hard for my scale to measure just 0.5 grains of powder. If you're not familiar with grains, it's just a unit of measure for very small amounts. To give you an example, in 1 pound there are 7,000 grains. Okay, so you can imagine 0.5 grains, how little that is. It's a very, very tiny amount of powder. Now I will tell you that the normal load for this kind of bullet, and I'm using tight group powder by the way, they recommend starting with 3.6 grains of powder for a lead cast bullet of 125 grains. So if you have this kind of bullet, normally you'd start around 3.6 grains. Now there is no minimum load data. That's your starting point. They never say how low you can go, but they obviously have maximums they don't want you to exceed. But anyways, I went up with 0.5 grains powder here. This is literally just under 1 grain, somewhere under 1 grain. This is 1 grain of powder. This is 1.5 grains of powder. This is 2 grains of powder and 2.5 grains of powder. I'm guessing around here we'll be able to clear the barrel. What I'm going to be shooting today out of is a 3.8 inch 9mm XDM. Okay, so this is a 3.8 inch barrel, and so we're going to see what happens as we shoot these. Now to be safe, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load a dummy round under each of these. So what I want to see is not only does it actually make it out of the barrel, or does it get stuck in the barrel, but does it have enough force to clear the brass, the empty brass out, and to cycle a new round in. Okay, so we're going to do this experiment here real quick. Alright, so here we go, XDM 3.8 inch barrel. We're going to test these bullets. This is just a dummy round. Notice there's no primer, there's no powder. I'm going to put that under here just to see if, now this is no powder at all in this round. This is just a primer, 125 grain hollow point. Okay, we're going to load that in there. So here's what we're going to do. I'm actually going to be pointing it at a jug here just a few feet away. I'm pretty sure we won't have nothing happen here. So just listen quiet. I'm going to gently squeeze that trigger. And all this is primer only. There's a little bit of smoke that came out the back here, and that was it. So now let's see what happened. Obviously the slide didn't move at all. You can see that. This round's in there. Of course, it didn't even eject the... So now here's the question. Did the primer itself have enough to pop the bullet out? And look, it did. So the primer just by itself was enough to pop our bullet out. So let's see how far down in there it went. So I'm going to dismantle the gun here. Alright, this is the first round. After pounding it for a little while, it came out. Had a bunch of, you see all the blackness on there. This is the bullet after I removed it. It actually wasn't that hard. I did just have to bang it a little bit, keep tapping it, and it popped out. Okay, that's that guy. Let's try this. This is our lead cast bullet, no powder at all. We'll do the same thing with it. So I'm going to load it into the magazine. So we'll put the around in there. All right, and let's get out here a little ways. And here we go. And again, we had the tiny bit of puff of smoke come out the back here, and I'm sure probably same result. Yep. So the bullet still in there. So that is a scary thing if you think about it. Obviously, we didn't hear any bang at all, right? The bullet is in the same place. It's down in here. Actually, it does look like this lead cast bullet actually made it further down in there. If I can focus this light down in there too much so that it can see. The camera's up there, you can see. But it actually made it a little bit further down in here. Let's see how hard this puppy is to pound out. Alright, here's our bullet, our lead cast bullet. I turned it into a flat nose because of my my rod I was using to bang it out with. But anyways, there it is. You can see the nice rifling embedded on it. So it actually made it down in the rifling a little ways. So that's that. Now we'll move on to the 0.5 grains of powder. This should be really interesting to see what happens with just 0.5 grains. Because that lead cast bullet made it a little ways into the rifling. I mean, the one with the primer only. So we're going to 0.5 grains of powder. Let's get the camera back a little bit. See if we can get a good shot on that. Yep, bring it up a little bit. All right. So here we go. 0.5 grains of powder. Okay. Holy wow. This is totally surprising. I'm going to show you something. That's what I was shooting at. And see that stream? We actually shot with 0.5 grains of powder, and you can see the water's flowing out there. 0.5 grains of powder. Not only did it have enough to leave the barrel and put a hole in this jug. Let me see here. Did it go through? It totally went all the way through that jug with just 0.5 grains of powder. And it cycled. It fully cycled this thing. Let me drop the mag. Oh wait, no it did not. Okay, take that back. Look, it did not cycle a new round in there. What it did do though, it seemed like it had enough to bring it back. It recocked my gun. Because what I know is I have a... So I have this indicator that shows that, you know, it is cocked. It's ready to fire. It won't focus on it for some reason. But this is, you know, the XGM. It shows, hey, basically, we're ready to fire again. But it didn't actually cycle around back into the chamber. So it just had enough to kick it back and reset the trigger, is what it did. Well, that is very... Well, let's bump it up a little bit to 1.5 grains. Well, obviously we know this will still clear the barrel. And you know, that's really actually encouraging. I mean, so if you barely get any powder in there, with a small barrel like this, 3.8 inches, I mean, it's not super short. I mean, you know, most handguns, compacts can be as small as 3-inch barrels. The XDS I have is 3.3 inch. This is 3.8. Fuller size service style guns are more around 5-inch barrels. But anyways, let's go with this guy now. So this is 1.5 grains of powder. Obviously, we know we're going to get out of the... It's going to go through all the way and leave the barrel. Okay. So it did that. But it didn't have enough to cycle. Okay, it didn't have enough to cycle the thing. But if you notice, I've got the striker indicator. So if I pull the trigger again, you know, so it actually reset the trigger. Had enough force to bring the slide back, reset the trigger. Okay. Let's move right on up. So, oh, you know what? I think I jumped one. That was 1.5 grains of powder. I skipped the 1 grain. So that's okay. We're going to jump right on up to 2 grains. 2 grains of powder. Here. Let's shoot this thing again. Let me get the gun in focus. Okay. Oh, look at that. Okay, so it looks like that is actually it fell to eject. Okay, but we're getting closer. So that's the round it was trying to pop out. Yeah, let me get this out. And that was my dummy round. Okay. So let's put our dummy round back in there. Now we're going to jump up to 2.5 grains powder. It's actually very cold today too. My hands are about frozen. So we're going to scoot away from here a little bit and we'll do. Oh, did we cycle? Oh, no, we didn't cycle. So 2.5 grains. Still not enough to cycle. I didn't load it on up. I guess I need to keep going. But anyways, it's interesting. 0.5 grains of powder, or just under 1. Let's say, 1 grain of powder. It's enough to leave the barrel. Now, to prove that I do still have this 1 grain round. That's kind of fun. It's like a cap gun with purpose. Anyways, that was a 1 grain, and I saw the jug move and hit water, and we're clear. But yeah, so even under 1 grain of powder, you have enough force to push that bullet out the barrel. It's kind of encouraging to know if you have a squib load, chances are it's going to leave the barrel. Now, if you have absolutely no powder, obviously we saw it won't. It'll get jammed down in there. But it doesn't take much powder at all to make that thing leave the barrel. And you can definitely see a feel and hear a difference when there's very little powder. And so obviously if there's no powder and you just hit a primer, you're going to know that at all because you won't hear anything. I mean, you hear the trigger click and you see maybe see a little bit of smoke. Anyways, hope you found that interesting.